Rademaker, prescription for your transformation, real people, real conversations, and real success. And I don't know if I'm ever going to get used to this, Sedona, but the technology that we have to race to get together to make sure that everything's appropriate is always so funny. And especially when you come in at the very last minute, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, is this going to actually work today or not? So I'm very excited to be talking to Dr. Marlene Siegel, and I had the incredible fortune to hang out with her yesterday and experience some amazing stuff. And so today is about what's amazing in the world of pets or animals for that matter. I mean, let's face it, animals are pets and it's important that we take, good care of them. But what I find absolutely fascinating, and I think pet owners can really relate to this, is how you start looking like your pet or your pet starts looking like you. But it goes deeper than that. It really goes to the point where your health and well-being is oftentimes reflected in your own animals. And what's interesting is that synergy, that connection, that relationship that we have with our animals is fundamental in our own presence and our own essence and the way that we live our lives. And so to disregard that, is kind of silly. And so, being aware of how we are impacted and how we impact our animals is important. But going beyond that, what about their own wellness? What about their own health? What is it that you're doing to taking care of your own pets? And are you also, following traditional medicine pathways? And if you're like me, who's trained, 17 years in the medical field and been working as a plastic and reconstructive and regenerative surgeon for the last 20 years, I totally respect, all the work that's done outside of traditional medicine. I mean, let's face it, Eastern medicine has been around for thousands of years, and they've proven over and over again without any scientific basis that it actually works. So we call that complementary and alternative medicine. And it's delightful to be talking to Dr. Marlene Siegel because of her innovative approach, to her ability to actually integrate both modern medicine and holistic or alternative medicine for her animals. But she doesn't stop there. And she's a thought leader, she's a speaker, she's an author, and she's a world changer to help both animals and their owners. So Dr. Siegel, thank you so much for joining me today.
Always fun to be with you. Thank you.
So we had a lot of fun yesterday. We were filming at your place, and today is about you. What is it that you do? What's important about holistic veterinary medicine? And I want to start off by giving people an image as to what it's like to go to your facility. And I'm going to share that for a moment. It's almost like you're going into this wilderness world and fantasy world in this clinic that's absolutely gorgeous. And you see murals of people and animals and fairies and all sorts of cool things, and trees and jungles. And they're on the walls, they're on the floor, they're on the ceiling. Well, maybe not the ceiling, but it's just a wonderful experience. You feel great when you walk in, and it's not like any other clinic. And I think that's the essence of the process by which we as healers or doctors can really begin the transformation, the healing process for our clients, both owners and their animals. And it was the very same thing in my own clinic when I had my own med spa. Instantly, when you walked into my place, people felt great. And I love it when you go to your place. That's exactly how I felt yesterday. And I was happy. It was fun. It was a great place to be at. So tell us a little bit about what you created, and then we're going to jump into the importance of what holistic medicine is for our animals, the interesting relationship that you then, a partnership that you then create with their owners, and you help heal them. And then also we're going to talk about the importance of the increasing incidence of things like cancer and other ailments in our animals as we see them in people. And then finally, this great conference that you're going to, and it's the truth about cancer. And I think this is a very important conference that's coming up in October in Orlando. I think it's October 5th, 6th, and 7th. And you're one of the speakers, if not the keynote speakers. So thank you.
Oh, I'm excited.
So tell us about your place. Let's go in order. Let's talk about your clinic in Pasco, which is just north of Tampa.
So I think the best way to start is that whatever we do in life, and I'm talking about myself or anybody, is it should be an expression of who you are. And who you are is what you do. So it's not that you can separate your personality and your spirit, mind, body, spirit all together. So my office reflects that inner self of me, the passion, the love for animals, the love for nature. And so that's what all the artwork was. It was portraying this essence of who we are internally and honoring nature and looking at endangered species and becoming conscious and aware of not only the beauty of what they hold, but how much they're there to teach us. They are truly our angelic guides. So man uses biotechnology to try to blister their way through the world. Well, nature works on sustainable solutions. Nature doesn't foul their living spaces. Nature only uses a few elements on the periodic chart to do its job. Man, however, uses all the elements on the periodic chart and mostly the toxic ones. So it's really a different mindset, and nature lives in a sustainable manner. Man hasn't figured that out yet. However, there's a science called biomimicry, and in biomimicry, it is the new biology where scientists literally study the strategies and patterns that nature uses to understand how can they be more sustainable in the world. I mean, they are doing it successfully. We're not.
So tell us a little bit about this biomimicry. What is it? What does it look like? And how can we actually apply it in our lives?
Well, it's actually the new biology. And there are companies that if they want to figure out, for example, how to stop scaling in pipes, that's a really big issue in cities because they're running water through these pipes and they start getting calcium carbonate to build up and the water doesn't run through. So it's a really big issue. And in biomimicry, what they did is they studied how the crustaceans, the shellfish, what do they do to stop building their shell? They're obviously not growing the size of Montana. So there's a DNA protein that is produced by that crustacean that tells that shell when to stop growing. The scientists were able to isolate that protein and then use that in water to stop the development of scaling. So that's just one example. There's hundreds. There's another one where a company developed a windmill, and they used the model of a whale that has these screens on them, they're like little projections. And the whale propels himself through the water in a slow motion function. So this company designed a windmill in low velocity, windmills are high velocity, in order to be able to make this windmill work just like the whale works. And again, there's hundreds of examples. But when we start looking at how does nature solve problems, how does nature figure out what to do, there's models everywhere. We just have to stop long enough and look. How do bugs make they make a chitin shell? It's like a plastic. But theirs is only using about 3 to 5 elements off the periodic chart, and it's recyclable. We make plastic bottles, and we use like 18 elements, and we can't get rid of it for 2,000 years. Which one is sustainable in there? Make sense?
So it's interesting. I've never heard of this technology, and where can someone find more about it?
There is a woman by the name of Janine Benymus, Benymus. And she has several TED Talks. She has stuff on YouTube. And she's a great speaker. She's a great educator. And she gives a boatload of examples for people to be able to see companies that are actually using this technology.
Love it. So let's move on with your holistic approach, because what I like people to appreciate, and I think this biomimicry is an important aspect of our sustainable living, and so is the holistic approach. Just understanding the natural elements in the world around us that affect us and tapping into that resource or essence and creating a healing environment for ourselves, which in fact, in one way, I would say is also sustainable. It's sustainable for a longer life for us because I foresee the doctor of the future and obviously the vets of the future too as people who will not be prescribing drugs and not be performing surgeries because they'll be tapping into what I call the brain intelligence, the body intelligence, as well as the energy intelligence. That's also what this platform is all about is how can we tap into that intelligence around us, just like you were talking with this biomimicry. And so share with people what is holistic veterinary medicine really about, and also with the emphasis on how you also just treat the owners as well as the animals.
So let's understand the model that we're living in right now for Western mindset. I call it a pill for an ill or a symptom-based approach. And even if you look at the model of how the medical world is developed, you have ear, nose, and throat, and then you have a dermatologist, and then you have the liver guy, and then you have the kidney guy. Everybody's separate. It's one body. It all talks to each other, but that doctor only focuses on that one organ system. Well, that's not really a sustainable approach because you've got an entire organism, right? And if you don't treat the whole organism, then you're not treating in a more, I keep using the word sustainable, but in a manner where the whole body heals. What are we? We're just a bunch of cells that are all resonating, and we're frequency. Well, if you're going to truly heal, what does that mean? That means that you're healing at the cellular level, not at the symptom level. The symptom is simply the warning sign that your body's telling you that there's a problem. The healing level occurs at the cellular level. So everything that I do involves working with the 5 energy bodies, which are the spiritual body, the mental body, the emotional body, the etheric body, and the physical body. I don't know that we have enough time on this show to go through each one of them, but let's just know that there's 5 energy bodies. And you have to heal in all 5 energy bodies because those are all part of who you are. And that's why we use sound and we use light and we use smell and color because those are all part of that healing mechanism. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Well, in the Western world, they focus on the physical body and they only focus on the symptoms. But that's not addressing why the problem occurred. I mean, 99% of the people that I talk to, I'll say, what do you do if you have a headache? And their answer is they take an aspirin. And then the headache goes away and they don't think twice about it. But why did the headache occur to begin with? Why do they have aches and pains? Somebody said to me today, well, my dog's getting older, so I kind of expect him to age like a person and get aches and pains. No, you don't. That is not normal. That is a sign of dis-ease. So I don't say I don't use the word disease. I say dis-ease. The body's not in balance. Get that from Chinese medicine. When the body's in balance, it works beautifully. When the body's not in balance, then so my approach, and I want to warn people because the buzzword now to talk about the alternative medicine, and I do holistic medicine, and so you hear people talking about that, but if all they do is one modality, it's certainly better than nothing. I'm not criticizing. But what they're basically doing is they're getting really good at one thing, but that's like getting the Western mindset where you have the ear, nose, and throat person, then the liver person, and the kidney person. Energy medicine isn't one modality. It's a lifestyle. It's a mindset. It's a way of living where you honor how the body works. So it makes sense to me that you treat the body as a whole. Where does that start with? If you have a swimming pool and you want to keep it clean, what's the first thing you don't do? You don't pollute it, right? You don't start putting toxins in there. And so you want to make sure that step number 1 for the body is we stop polluting the body. And it's appalling to me that there's so many doctors out there on the veterinary side and on the human side that they're just chasing after the symptoms and they're giving a pill for an ill or an herb or an acupuncture treatment, and they're not addressing the root cause. And the underlying cause of all dis-ease is inflammation, right? So where does inflammation come from? It comes from a bad gut, leaky gut. So we have to back up a little bit and start taking responsibility for 1, stop polluting our bodies. And that includes stress, that includes genetically modified foods, that includes toxins from the water, that includes the toxins that we're absorbing through our skin, that includes what we're spraying on our lawns, and even includes our negative thoughts. That's a huge one. How many people do we run into and they're just, oh, woe is me, and they're frustrated and they're tired and they're just complaining all the time, and it's the negative this and the blame that. Well, I love to say to people, when you blame somebody, I hope maybe this comes out. When you're blaming somebody and you're pointing that finger, there's three fingers pointing back at you. You got to take responsibility for where does the buck stop? And the buck stops with ourselves. We need to stop blaming others for the conditions that we're going through, for the stress, for all the problems that we have in our world. Even can't be blaming Monsanto. If we're buying the stuff that they're producing, then shame on us. But we do have choices. We can draw a line in the sand and say, you know what? I don't have to live with that anymore. And then you stop doing it, and then you influence your family and your friends. And before long, you've made a huge change in the world.
So here's a question that I have for you. And it's really, why is there so much resistance for people to begin to appreciate the benefit of wellness and the benefit of having a better lifestyle? Why is it that we simply seem to escape to the need to have and to intoxicate ourselves, to rely on medicines because it just seems more convenient? When the truth is that if we don't take care of ourselves well, we're going to have early onset of disease. I mean, ultimately, I think our body does break down. But why not, prolong our well-being for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, because we're making smarter choices. So what do you think is the real challenge for people for not doing that? And let me ask you this specifically for their pets.
Belief systems. It's as simple as that. So remember I mentioned there's 5 energy bodies. You have your spiritual body, you have your mental body, your emotional body. Our belief systems come from the thought that we create and the emotional attachment we put to it. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
So what happens is, as we're growing up, we're from birth to 7, we're viewing the world through our experiences. We're not passing judgment. At that point, your brain is in a more theta brainwave, so you're just recording everything. So how your parents or your caregivers respond to stress, money problems, relationships, work issues, interrelationships, other siblings, that becomes a belief system of yours because you've observed that and you've recorded that. Now, as you get older, if you became aware of that, you would realize that there was an emotion attached to that belief. That's why sometimes the glass is half full and the glass is half empty. It's the same glass. Why do people see it differently? It's because they have a different belief system. So if that's all they've ever known, then that's going to be what they believe to be the truth. It's actually not the truth. It's just what they believe to be the truth. Now you look at all these doctors that have come out of school, whether it's human or veterinary, and their belief system is simply what they've been taught. So if they aren't taught something different, you know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. So you only can draw from those experiences that you have in your conscious memory or subconscious memory that you have programmed in there. So what we're trying to do is help people to understand that some of the belief systems that we have taken on as our truths don't have to be our truths, and maybe they're not even our truths. Maybe it's something we just recorded because we observed it, and then we kept repeating it to the point where we believe that's what it is. So as I help people to become more aware, here's a great example. I would say a good 80% of the population that owns pet feeds them processed foods. Now, nobody intentionally poisons their animal. Nobody. But if they don't know any better, they'll come in and they'll say, well, I'm buying the best food out there because they heard an advertisement. Somebody in the pet store said this is the most expensive and it's the best food. They don't know why they're being told that. They're just trusting the belief system that that somebody on the sales side is telling them the truth. Same thing with our doctors. We want to believe that our doctors mean the best for us. And I truly do think that most do. Veterinarians are some of the most compassionate, kindest, well intended people on the planet. But they only know what they know and they don't know what they don't know. So I have listened to specialists, these are board certified veterinary specialists that are still promoting processed food diets while their client is spending thousands of dollars on chemo. The very thing that caused the problem, they're still doing that. And yet they're, do you get where I'm going? So I think what we really need to do is start waking up and becoming more conscious and more responsible. And people need to stop just accepting the fact that they're getting older and they're feeling bad. I don't think that's, and so I refuse to make that my belief system. We have one vehicle to carry ourselves through this planet, at least for this dimension. Our pets, they have one body to go through as well. So there's no redos, there's no mulligans, and you can't trade it in for a new model. It just makes more sense to start taking care of your body. And since we're not taught how to do that, we have to go a little bit further outside the box to be able to start getting that information, which is why programs like yours, why the truth about cancer is transforming the lives of millions, because it's giving people other options.
So before we go into the truth about cancer, I want to ask Sedona, because she's our future generation. She's the youngest generation that I'm getting to connect with. And so what Dr. Siegel said was really, really interesting. And it's also the basis of my platform here, is what you don't know that you don't know is going to make all the difference. And so what's interesting is that you take like the baby boomers and and even, older generations or younger generations than that, before and after that, that they're relying on the system of information that Dr. Siegel just provided. But do you think that your generation is different insofar that, their connection with technology and information is so much better that you might feel that you will be better informed about your personal wellness and lifestyle so that you can make better choices? Do you think that's the case?
I feel that it's interesting because we do have a lot of technology and a lot of options to learn that, but I still know that, myself included, and the majority of my friends, we still don't really know how to take care of ourselves. Everybody kind of throws information at you. There's all kinds of different lifestyles and diet changes and all kinds of things, but it seems like every couple months or every couple years, something new comes out that's supposed to be better than it was. And maybe it's because we're getting more information, or maybe people are just looking at it from both ends. Like 10 years ago, they said eggs were bad for you, and now they say that's one of the best protein sources. And people still like constantly fight about whether dairy products are good or bad for you. And truthfully, I just think you can do anything you want in moderation. That's what I've been taught my whole life. And there are certainly better options. And since I've gotten into college and into school, where I became a lot more responsible for what I was eating and what I was doing and exercising, it's kind of what you were saying, like there's so many options out there and you just have to live with the choices that you make. And if you're hurting, then you need to reevaluate what you're eating. If I sit around and eat ice cream all day, which we probably have done that at some point, everybody has had days where they just eat a lot of crap, and then the next day you just have to realize, like, okay, that was a bad decision, my stomach hurts.
But my question is, are you guys realizing that? And are you making different decisions? Or, is just saying, look, I'm going to go to McDonald's in moderation, but then I'm going to go to Burger King in moderation and Chick-fil-A in moderation. And by the end of the week, all I do is eat fast food. And do you eat fast food?
Oh, I sure do. And I can tell you, oh, I know, it's so bad. It's so bad. And I can tell you that most of the time, and this is such a dumb excuse, but it's like seriously what so many people live by, is there just isn't like the time or the resource to always find something healthy. There's just not enough time in the day to go. When I go to work, they don't let me bring stuff that I brought from home on the bus, and there's no grocery stores around here. So the only thing I can do is go to the mall and get a smoothie or like a salad there, but then it costs you $1 million sometimes to do that. So I'm still working on finding those options.
Yeah. Well, we've had this conversation before and last time. And for example, if you go to Costco, for example, you can buy those small things,
Right.
and they're like small little meals that are great, by the way. So, no excuse there, Sedona. You're not off the hook.
I just need a bigger bag. I think I need a bigger bag to hide things on the bus.
But I'd like to make a point here. If every time somebody ate something that was really harmful to their body, a brick fell on their head, it wouldn't take very long before you would take whatever measures it took to not let that brick fall on your head. What's happening is people don't feel the consequences of their actions. But if somebody were able to say, if you look in the future, in 10 years from now, how old are you, Sedona? In your 20s?
19.
You're 19. If somebody said to you when you're 28 years old, God forbid, that you would have cancer and you will die before you're 32, would you make those changes?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm sure anybody would try to.
Exactly. So here's the point. We don't make things a priority because we don't have enough pain in the game. And yet we know there is beyond evidence that, let's just pick on stuff like Roundup, like glyphosate. Once that's in your body, you can't take a pill and wash that out. That stuff is in your body. It's in your tissues. You're going to pass that to your children. So when you have a child and your child now has that toxin in their body and they're going to live shorter lifespan than you are, that is fact. And we are destroying our environment by not being willing to make our priorities. So I tell people, everybody has the same number of hours in the day. They do. It's one clock. We all have to. It's how you choose to spend your time. Now, there's a lot of people who, and I'm not criticizing television viewers. I just happen to not have a television. I haven't had one in 10 years because to me, it was such a waste of time. So I don't have a television. But we all choose where to spend our time. And I try to pick the things for me that brings me joy and connects me back to earth and helps to ground me. I do a lot of gardening, and my whole yard is a garden. Literally, it's my yard. So that's where I choose to spend my time. My daughter and I prep our meals for the week so that we have food that's dehydrated. We have meals that are prepped. We have meals that are frozen so that we don't have to go out and eat the toxic stuff. And when I do go out, ask them what fry your food in. And if it's fried in canola oil, I won't eat it. So we all just have to make choices and just be willing to accept the responsibility for our choices. The thing is, most people do not realize what their choices are causing them because it's not an immediate response. They don't get that immediate feedback. Now with our pets, we see that feedback quicker because they live a shorter lifespan. And I will tell you, people who say to me, oh, I can't afford to feed my pet raw or organic or whatever, but yet they come in when their pet gets sick and they spend hundreds and thousands of dollars to try to make this animal well when they could have prevented the very problem that we're dealing with.
So I just have to mention somebody. I won't mention any names, Dr. Siegel, but I think we saw your daughter in the background, and I think a couple of things have gone viral on Facebook when somebody was in the background. So you better talk to your daughter about that one. Did you see her in the background just a few minutes ago? So you better warn her. If she doesn't want to go viral on Facebook, she better not be walking behind you again.
Okay.
So I might edit this one. Huh? No, I'm not sure. I think she was half naked there.
She shouldn't. We just came from work, so she should have clothes on. I am upstairs in my office, and the bedrooms are right behind me. Sorry, guys.
All right, so you can watch the replay on this and see what happened. But here's what's interesting, and it relates to some of the things that you shared earlier about beliefs, and a lot of the spiritual growth that I think that's happening in the world today, because people are just beginning to realize that there's something definitely missing, and they're searching beyond, your traditional news outlets and media outlets and everything else. And I just want to, share with you, Dr. Siegel, that our future broadcasting business is in the hands of Sedona here. So, but the point of the matter is that when we choose to become more evolved, and so that's understanding, where those belief systems come from, where it's understanding, what caused us to believe what it is that we believe. And it's not about psychoanalysis or anything, but understanding that at some point, as an infant, and you're completely dependent on your parents to feed you, and you reach a moment that for some reason you're one of the parents or both parents are taking care of something else, and so you don't get fed and you're in pain. In that very moment of stress and trauma, you're making a decision about what that means, what that emotion means. And all of that's at a very unconscious level. And I believe people just simply don't understand that part of our lives, or they're not even, it's not even brought to their attention, if you will. And so then you go through the rest of your life with the idea of, okay, not having food means this, or, cold means that. And so without that conscious awareness, we make a lot of choices. And I think that's fundamentally the problem with most people's inability to appreciate what's going to happen in 10 years. Because it's a challenge that I've seen so often is that, people are not going to rely on the logic, but they're going to rely, as you mentioned, on the emotion. It's the feeling. And when it remains at that.
If I don't get my charger in 2 seconds, I'm going to be dead. So hang on 1 second.
Oh, okay. That's a good thing. So I think I'll continue talking, Mr. Donna, but I think, that's an interesting aspect of why so many people out there, simply are unable to foresee what their future is unless, they're faced with some sort of traumatic experience with a close relative or someone else, where they then wake up and realize, wow, making these poor choices. But many of the choices that we make today, and including the ones that you were just describing earlier on about your lifestyle, is really based on your spiritual growth early on. What are the experiences that you have, and what are the conclusions you made? And all of that's unconscious, because logically, right, you would clearly make better choices if life was that much more convenient for you. You would. But when life isn't, working out the way that you would like it to, where you have all the time and everything's taken care of and you have unlimited funds and you can do whatever you want, then it's a lot easier to make all those, healthier choices. If even not even going to work, because, your health is more important. But we live in a world where that's not possible. And so I think what Dr. Siegel, what?
You have to work to create it. First of all, you have to make your priorities. And then once you make your priorities, then you start attracting the very people that will support you in that. Does that make sense? So if you are hanging around a lot of people that are eating junk food and drinking and binging and all that.
Well, let me stop. But Dr. Siegel, let me stop you there. I mean, the very point of what I was getting at is that you could talk to people logically and say, well, you got to get priorities, but they're not going to make that connection unless they do that work, that spiritual growth, where they then understand, why they're making the choices. And that's what I've seen over and over again. And it's the same thing, because we're not evolved enough, that's why we're polluting the world with all these stupid choices that we're making. And I think that's the major problem. And so it's fortunate that the work that you do, gently and consistently, is delivering better choices for people so that they can make better choices, for themselves and live healthier lives and see their wellness reflect on their animals. And when they get sick, realize, well, hang on a second, they have a shorter lifespan. Let's take care of them. And now let me take care of myself because of the work that you do. And what's neat about what I really like about what you do is that you're also focused on the owners and helping them. And so I like to talk a little bit about that because you have some very interesting technology in your place. So you not only have that holistic approach, but you've got this alkaline water. You've got this amazing magnosphere. You've got lymphatic drainage. You've got infrared saunas. I mean, come on. I mean, Sedona, have you ever gone? Do you have any animals, Sedona? Do you have any pets?
Not anymore, no.
Okay, but did you ever go to the vet with any of your pets?
I don't think so. I think my parents just took them.
All right. Well, do you think, when you go to your local vet that there'll be an infrared sauna in their clinic?
I have no idea.
No, probably not. So tell us a little bit about that, Dr. Siegel. What's the deal with all this high tech stuff, and also the holistic, the energy work that you do?
Well, because I work in 5 energy bodies, it's very important to make sure that we are able to address all those energy bodies. And my approach is a really simple 5-step system. I've actually written a program to teach veterinarians how to integrate alternative medicine into their practices. And there's a sister program that teaches clients or pet owners or just people who want to learn, how do I actually come up with a plan? What is the format where do I start? There's a maze of information out there. There's Dr. Google. There's just so much information. It's information overload. So I've created a very simple 5-step system that teaches people how to lay the foundation no matter what your challenge is. And they're able to start doing those things through my coaching. They go in usually with their pet, but it's always interesting that the owner will come back and say, well, if it's good for the pet, do you think it would work for me? And you mentioned earlier in the beginning of the conversation how pets mirror owners or owners mirror pets. That's not a coincidence, and that's not an accident. I'll be bold enough to say that I think our pets are angelic messengers, and they literally bring their owners to a place of healing so that they can go, oh, well, maybe I should be doing that, whether it's diet or detoxing, whatever it is. So that's why I created the ambience that I have, is because you can't just isolate and treat with one tool. Like, you're a surgeon. Would you do all your surgeries with one instrument? Obviously not, or of course not. Well, how do you practice this kind of level of energy medicine and technology with one tool? So every time actually, the reason I came across so much technology was my quest to heal my horse. But that's another conversation, and the story's on my website.
Well, I actually, share that story, because I was just going to ask you about that story, and that's the reason you got into what you do, because I think it's remarkable, and I think it's important for people to appreciate the truth about animals and their connection with us.
If you stop and think about it, people who have made big impacts in the world, big transformational leaders, have all experienced some kind of life transformation, some incident, some trauma, some challenge that forced them to leave that mindset. Yes?
Right.
And mine was my horse. There was an incident where my daughter was riding, and it could have been a fatal accident, and this horse saved her life. And it was in my quest to heal that horse that it really led me here. And when I had equine doctors come out and look at this horse, they said, oh, well, we don't know what's wrong with her, but she's not safe to ride. So you can either retire her or you can put her to sleep. And it was in that moment that I really understood what people feel when they're told, I'm sorry, there's nothing more I can do for you. Failure was not an option. I was just not willing to accept that as an answer. And so that began my journey to find answers that just didn't exist in the Western world. And as I looked, I found another teacher, another tool, another teacher, another tool. And it was just amazing, the expansion. And of course, then I started integrating that into my personal life because it just made sense. And that's what it evolved into. So I became certified in natural health. I incorporated that lifestyle for me. And it is not what I do anymore. It is literally who I am.
And let me just emphasize one thing about the accident, and so the listeners are very clear on this, is that her daughter was riding the horse and there was an accident, and the way the horse could have fallen could have severely injured, if not, killed your daughter, but the horse made a different choice. And because the horse made a different choice to save the girl, the horse got severely injured. And I think that's a remarkable story. It's like, wow, here's an animal that really cares so much about a person that they
Hmm.
sacrifice their own well-being. And I think, that's remarkable, and that's a remarkable story.
It
So I
was.
like,
And what's even better is after I was told that she would never be able to be fixed or
right.
healed or whatever you want to call that, 3 months later, she and my daughter won their youth national competition, which was I'm sorry, they were reserve national champion. They came in second place in the entire United States, and they won reserve national champion. It was remarkable to see this horse recover. But I was absolutely diligent. That I was so focused on I was going to find a cure for this horse, and it just took me into areas I would never have imagined, scientific and woo woo. Covered it all. There was nothing off limits for me. If it had a potential for helping, I was going to learn it.
And you know what? Nothing should be off limits to all of us if we're honest, and we get the results that we're looking for. And I think that's key. So we have about 15 minutes left, and I just wanted to reach out on two things, or three things actually. Number one, the incidence of disease is increasing, partly, I'm sure, because of the kinds of foods that we give our animals. So I'd like you to
Yeah.
give us a brief overview of, what kind of foods are best for our animals. So give us an idea of that. Give us an idea of, what's really underlying the greater incidence, and just wrap that up in a few minutes, because there's this incredible event that you're part of, and that's the truth about cancer, and how this gentleman Ty Bollinger is really interviewing different doctors so that we can come up with different answers, or better answers perhaps in some cases, as to how it can be healthy. So let's start off with some of the foods that you do recommend.
So I always recommend a species appropriate diet, and that goes for people and or animals. We need to eat the diet that we were designed to eat. So if we remember in my age group, Marlene Perkins in the Wild Kingdom, all you got to do is look out in nature. Dogs and cats are carnivores. In fact, cats are obligate carnivores. They have no dietary requirement for carbohydrates. So what does a carnivore in the wild eat? They eat another animal, and they eat it in the state that they killed it in. They don't make it into a kibble, they don't package it into a can. Processed foods really came about as a mechanism to get rid of the waste products when human food was being processed after the 1940s. So it's really kind of a sad thing. And then we turned that into pet food. And it is a $1 trillion industry. So we have to stop, first of all, and go, what are we actually eating? What are we feeding our pets? I mean, for most people, they don't even know what they're eating themselves. So step number one is eat a species appropriate diet. And we do recommend a raw diet. There are some commercial companies available. You just have to work with somebody who's educated, who understands the diet. It is not about going to Publix and dropping a piece of chicken on the floor and calling that a raw diet. We're talking about a balanced diet. Animal in the wild would eat through the organs, they would eat through the intestinal tract and get their probiotics. They ate muscles, they ate cartilage, they even ate through some of the outside fur, and that's how they even got some of their fiber. So it was a real beautiful mechanism. They ate a very balanced deal. Somehow they innately knew how much organ meat to eat compared to how much muscle meat and how much bone. So we don't want to just feed an unbalanced diet. It needs to be a species appropriate, balanced, raw diet that isn't processed and full of chemicals and hormones and pesticides. Step number two is water. We're 70% water, so is our pets. Water is the most important element in our body. You can go without eating for weeks, but you can't go without water for more than a few days. So water is critical. Since 1941, there have been over 75 synthetic chemicals introduced into our food, water, and plants. So those 75,000 chemicals have found their way into our tap water, which is now contaminated with over 60,000 harmful chemicals. That is horrid. And then people drink out of bottled water, and that has 24,500 tested by a German research company of the top bottled plastic water bottles. Horrible. So that's why we went and found, I just knew we needed to find something. Remember, step number one was reduce influx of toxins. You have to stop polluting the body. Well, food and water are your primary two sources where you're polluting your body. So water was huge for me. And I found this machine that uses electrolysis to produce a water that has hydrogen in it. It's molecular hydrogen. And we know from over 700 studies that molecular hydrogen is one of the best molecules that you can use against oxidative stress. And oxidative stress is the harmful, well, oxidative stress is a normal mechanism for the body. It's kind of like your normal wear and tear. But then we increase the oxidative stress by doing things like our SAD lifestyle. You know what a SAD day looks like? We know that SAD diets are the standard American diets. But I have developed a term, and I've never heard it used before. It's called the standard American day. And that's a day that starts out being sleep deprived, and then the stress of the children, and stress of work, and stress of money, and stress of family, and stress of bad food, the sad food that you're eating. So all of that is happening all day long. So step number one, eat a species appropriate diet that's clean, no processing, no sugars, no bad oils, etc. Step number two, a clean water. And I would encourage people to look into the Echo H2 water. It's made by Synergy Science. And if you contact me, I'll give you the information on how to get a hold of them. An amazing machine. 4 things. 1, it produces molecular hydrogen, which is the best antioxidant you can put in your body. Step number 2, it is highly filtered. It even takes out Roundup or glyphosate, along with heavy metals and most of the other toxins that are in our water. And while water doesn't protect you guys, it's in our groundwater. So no matter what, you're getting these chemicals. And then, so we covered food and water. And then we have to start looking at what we're using in our households. Are you using toxic chemicals? Are you using toxic cleaners? What are you washing in? Are you using endocrine disruptors in your laundry soap? You really got to address even electromagnetic frequency. Really important to be minimizing that. And there's companies that now make, once you identify, we actually go out into people's homes and we test to see what is the EMF pollution that they have. And then there's a company that we use that offers mitigating services. So they help you to minimize the amount of EMF toxicity that you're getting. So that's step number 1, is you got to stop polluting the body. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's perfect. So tell me a little bit about the increasing incidence of disease. Obviously, we know where it's coming from, and it's processed foods, it's the toxins. But what is it that you're seeing, just so that people are becoming more aware of this and start making better choices for their own pets?
I would say cancer is absolutely, hands down, the most rising disease that we see in our pet families. And when I started practicing 3 decades ago, we would see 1 or 2 cancer cases a year. I am now seeing 4 to 10 a week. I had a dog come in today, wasn't even having symptoms of cancer, and we took x-rays to see if the dog had arthritis and had lung cancer. I mean, advanced stage lung cancer. And he wasn't coughing. That was the sad part. The owner had no clue. She just knew the dog wasn't feeling good, wasn't eating as well, and seemed to be having a harder time moving around. So she just assumed, he's 10 years old, that it was going to be arthritis. So,
Hey, by the way, your daughter's in the background again, so.
No, she's not.
Oh, she was. So,
Alyssa, I'm filming.
so anyhow, let's talk about the Truth About Cancer. This is the event that's coming up in October, and you're speaking at that event.
I'm so excited. I'm the first veterinarian that they've ever brought into the organization. So I'm beyond honored and beyond excited to get this message out.
And so what are you talking about?
So I'm talking about the Truth About Cancer Pets. And I don't know if I'm supposed to let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, but Ty and I also filmed the Truth About Cancer's Pets, a documentary. And
Nice.
he's going to release that at the end of the year. And I'm releasing the program that I've created to teach veterinarians how to integrate alternative services into their practices, and also releasing the sister program, which is for client so that they can learn the steps that I just started to describe to you. They can learn that in depth. Of course, in the program, I go into much more detail, but they can start learning what can they actually do. And I don't expect people to change everything day one. It's about starting with baby steps. You pick one thing that you should be doing, but you're not, and you start doing it until it becomes who you are. Then you pick one thing that you shouldn't be doing, and you stop it. You just stop it. There's no other excuse. And then you get that to be a habit, and then you pick two new things. And of course, I've been doing it for over 20 years, so I've evolved way down the road because now it's just my lifestyle. It's what I am and who I do.
I'm going to talk about that in a moment, but really want to finish up with the truth about cancer coming up in Orlando. And I understand that Bollinger, what he does, he interviews different doctors, sees what they're doing, really to have a better perspective of really what's out there. As you said, and I say all the time, what you don't know that you don't know, that's going to make the difference. Also the reason for this platform. And so are you familiar with any of these interviews, and have you met them? And can you share
absolutely.
us a little more about that?
The creme de la creme, the most knowledgeable of the alternative veterinary world will be there as speakers. And the audience, this event is actually in Orlando, Florida, is open to the public. So you can buy tickets to go to the event. And he also has a live streaming of the speakers. I think it's just the keynote speakers. And if you can't make the live streaming, which is free, if you want to connect with that, you have to connect with me on Facebook. It's under my name, Marlene Siegel, and there'll be a picture of me, looks like me with a pink shirt on. And Dr. Bart, will you put a link up for that so that they can connect with me on Facebook? And
yep,
I will be posting the links to the live event, the live streaming, and they also sell the package of all the speakers, the talks. So, and the money that they collect for that goes into research. And we're not talking foo-foo research. We're talking, these are companies that are out there doing cutting edge alternative research, scientifically proving how to detox, how to prevent cancer, the right herbs and the right protocols. So I buy their programs every year because it is beyond life-saving. It's phenomenal.
That's awesome, because we need so much more of this, and what I'd like to do is find out, who's going, and so I can also interview some of them.
Dr. Mercola is going to be there. I know
Nice.
Mike Adams, the health ranger, Paul Baratero, who owns the Echo Water Company, is going to be there. Robert Scott Bell, who is a naturopath, but he has a radio show. He's a syndicated radio show, the Robert Scott Bell Show. Sayer G. Also, I think it's called Green Med Info. He's going to be there. Dr. Brzezinski is going to be there. Oh, gosh, the list, it's like the who's who. I think I'm the only one that isn't known. These people are my icons. I'm so honored.
Well, you're becoming more known, and so should you be, because of what it is that you're doing, and you're spearheading a much more beautiful approach to the wellness of our own animals, and as well as their owners, because it's so critical that we start adapting new lifestyles. And one of the things I think that's important for the listeners to appreciate, and so now I'm also talking to Sedona, when you eat too much ice cream and you feel bad, is, be your best coach. Just start appreciating that your body is giving you all sorts of signals as to what's not good for it. And so when you don't feel well, and instead of, if you have indigestion, as you will, and then the commercial says, well, take some Zantac or something else, really use that as a signal that you need to start making better choices, because that signal right there is essentially saying, look, you keep this up, you're going to have some serious conditions later on in your life. And that's really what it is. And so, being aware of how your body is responding to what you eat, what you drink, how you sleep, and things like that. In my particular case, for example, I just changed, cleaned my carpets, got a new mattress, getting new pillows and things like that, because I'm responding to the fact that I'm not sleeping as well as I like to sleep. And so taking matters in your own hand, I think, is essential. And then finding people like Dr. Siegel and to help guide you in making better choices. I just sat, for an hour in this magnosphere, and it was an amazing experience. You could tell that it was rebalancing the electromagnetic fields of my body, and clearly is going to have its benefits. And so I think we have to wrap up, right, Sedona?
Can I just make one more comment?
Yeah, you got 10 seconds.
That one thing, you said it so eloquently, is develop your tribe. So not only pick what you want to have in your lifestyle, but surround yourself with those people that can hold your hand and walk you through it and encourage you. And it's okay if you fall down. Somebody's going to pick you back up again. So hang around with those like-minded people. They say that you are the average of the 5 people that you hang around. So look around at the 5 people you hang around the most. Is that who you want to be like and look like and live like? Is that what you want? And if not, think about making some changes.
And with that great advice, we're going to sign off. I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, Prescription for Your Transformation, real people, real conversations, real success. Talking to the enlightened Dr. Marlene Siegel, and go watch her at the Truth About Cancer in Orlando next month. Thank you so much.
Connect on Facebook.
Thank you. Take it away, Sedona. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Dr. Rademaker's Prescription for Transformation. Join Dr. Bart Rademaker live right here on Radio Star Worldwide each week, or on demand 24/7.